Hello and welcome to my presentation for the fourth Linux assignment with Nagios. I'm just going to be running through a bunch of commands here real quick to show kind of what I've got set up. So this is my Nagios server, which is going to be the 10.10.22.05 IP, and this is my DNS server, which is 10.10.20.176. I've just got everything kind of laid out here that I can just breeze through all of the commands I need to show. So I started with changing this Nagios server to use my DNS server specifically for redirecting, and I'll show Nagios config, which I had to add the DNS server config. DNS server is what I just referred to this one as. Don't think I had to change anything else in this. All of this is just the defaults. Um, and into the actual DNS server config itself. As you can see, the primary is the 179 Linux DNS server there, and we've got the all of these check commands for it, which is going to be monitored on the Nagios interface. Kind of just split up a little bit. These are for the database, memory usage, and the keep alive check, which will come into play later, but it will be checking for the string of or the word alive on the PHP. Um, the commands, which these just kind of a lot of these were defaults with Nagios when I installed the plugins. They just take in the different arguments with different. There's a million of them. I had to add a couple down here for the SQL and NRPE and DNS. Um, that's most of those. Then on the target, the NRPE server config, I had to point this towards the Nagios server, and all these checks here, this basically just pulls in their um, arguments. Um, the ports there, 5666, and yeah, there's that. Um, Identify, so since I'm on the target, this is where the plugins got installed there. You can see check disk, load, memory, processes, swap, and users. Those ones are all there on that one. And if I go over here to the Nagios server, you can see there's a whole lot more in here because I installed the packages with all those. Not all of these got used, but that's where they are. I can run some manually from the Nagios server pointed at the DNS server. So there's check load. I'll actually just copy all of these and just run them all at once. You can see it checks the load balance there, the disk usage, the processes, and this line is returning that it did check for alive in that PHP on site 6.amod.com/keepalive, which if I go there, you can see it does say alive. I will show more on that later. Um, SE Linux is enforcing on both, as you can see on the Nagios server enforcing and on the DNS server enforcing. I did have to add some rules to allow myself to manually be able to um, refresh or like check in the actual Nagios interface to force it to refresh and check. These are two of the commands to fix that because Apache does get blocked, which was very annoying to figure out, but it did work in the end. I don't even if that'll still show. Yeah. Um, SE Linux. It's always SE Linux, which is the problem. Firewall rules. I'll just list all here real quick. You can see HTTP, HTTPS, and some rich rules for the network there. That is specifically for the MySQL ports. Um, Over here, I'll do the same thing if it will paste. Same thing, but this one only points towards the Nagios server because it doesn't really need all of the others. It only really needs to tell the Nagios server. Um, Listing rich rules, I just did that there, and it has the other things on it. So Nagios dashboard, First, I'll just show this for my zone file. Down at the bottom, I put the assignment foresight for monitor 10.10.22.05, which the Apache uses. I will just dig it from the um, Nagios server just to show it does return that. It can see it. It does all that. And if I actually just go to the site, this is a new private tab, so it'll actually force me to use the Nagios admin credentials I created earlier. To actually get into Nagios, I'll go show the hosts, and you can see the local host, which was default there, and DNS server, which is what is being monitored. If I go up to the status, you can see all of the checks that I have in place, which is CPU load, current usage, DNS resolution, disk usage, memory usage, the 4 MySQL ping, swap usage, total processes, and my keep alive. I'll go through and show a bit more on those after. Um, and yep, it's using the proper things there, and I showed the A record. I don't actually know what the PowerShell command verification is for this, but yeah, I did the dig. I showed that. Yeah, so I just showed the fundamental ones you wanted here, the ping, all of these. They all work there. Um, I'll run this manually in the Nagios server to show that it is checking the whole thing, not just part of it. Um, and yeah, 89.37% free space shows there. This one is the web server HTTP check to check keep alive is showing, which it returns okay. I did try and get this to return alive found in the string. I had a workaround for it that I did have working, but it wasn't using check HTTP. It was using a custom check that I made, which showed the for that one, I actually used a custom check that I made that would return the HTTP string, but also returning the string from the PHP that said alive. But once I reread the criteria, I noticed that it wasn't like I had to use the default check HTTP, which I will demonstrate later does show that this will fail if alive is not found, but we'll get to that later. I used MariaDB for this, which I actually liked quite a bit there, and I'm just going to run all 4 of these commands at once and explain each. So that checks uh, well, the first one checks the health, I guess. Um, that one kind of actually gave me a problem yesterday, but fixed itself. So 0.01 seconds to connect, 0 slow queries, which is good. 1 client connection thread, which is just the one user on the server, I guess, and it has been up since yesterday, which is 1351 minutes. My DNS is working properly, so if I paste that in there, it is pointing right at that. You can see DNS check OK, returning the proper IP. And now manually shutting down some daemons on the target server. This is just to display that Nagios is actually um, monitoring this. Um, Interesting that I don't understand that not being there. Maybe it's because it's capitalized. Yes, it was. I should not have fixed that punctuation. I'm just going to fix that just in case. So that has just stopped both of those processes. So if I go back to this, I'm going to go to one of these MySQL and force a check. And you can see that one is critical because MySQL MariaDB is now not on. Sometimes these will take a minute to refresh. I'm just going to go through and reschedule the checks on all of them, which I needed to change SE Linux permissions to actually be able to get this working, because before I did that, Nagios didn't actually have the permissions to talk to the command line for some reason, which was interesting. Um, and then I'll just do a small cut here when all of these are up. So now that you can see all four of the MariaDB checks are critical, they have no information from the schema because the service is just down, and my HTTPS being down no longer forwards to site 6 keep alive. This will time out after I refresh it because it's not being shown by Apache because Apache is disabled. And then I will restart both of those. And both of those, I will then go through and force reschedules on all of these, and I will do a small cut after this is done. So we're back now. This is still going to be showing critical because the database has only been up since 0 minutes. When I tested this earlier, it stayed in a critical state until it was up for 10 minutes. I believe that's from one of the built-in warnings, which is a threshold I could have edited, but I didn't. I did go and change all of the attempts to only be one reattempt to go critical just for the purpose of this demonstration. So next I will show the keep alive PHP and that changing the content of alive here, and we're just going to change it to nothing and save that systemctl restart httpd and named. I just want to cover the bases, but if I go back to this now shows nothing, and if I reschedule the check and force it now and give it just a short moment, this will stop being okay. As you can see, it's now critical because the string alive is not found. So if I go back into here and change nothing back to alive, save that, restart those, and I go back to the site, I just refresh that, and then I reschedule a check to force that to update a little sooner. It normally takes 5 minutes for Nagios to auto check. That seems to be what they go through, and there we go. It is back to the OK status. And restarted that. So if I change the A record in my DNS monitoring now, so if I go to amod.com.zone and go all the way to the bottom and change this from 10.10.22.05 to 10.20.30.40, save that. Actually, I need to change the serial number, save that, and then I will just restart named, and then I will go back to Nagios and go to my DNS resolution, force that to update, and that can still take a short while. I wish it was instant, but it's not. Come on. I wonder if this broke when I restarted my VMs. I had some issues with DNS resolution when it wasn't, it's returning 10, 20, 30, 40. I think I have to fix that, but I'll move on for now. I think a few things broke when I did change that. That should not be returning that. It should be returning the the fact that it's not that, but I'm just going to change it back for now, and I will edit into the very end of this the fixed version of that. And for now, I'll just move on. Okay, rescheduling any task I've been doing I can reschedule it into the future. I've just been having it go instantly, but you can uncheck force check and select the exact time, and it's just doing exactly what it has been doing. Um, so I've demonstrated that. Additional monitoring. For the stress test, I installed stress on the target server, and I will just run this command to give it a little bit of stress here, not a crazy amount, but if I go back to details and I will have it check the CPU load and the memory usage here, and when these update, once these update, whenever it does, if I refresh maybe, go back to DNS server and status, change that to 2 gigs, um, and that does not look like it'll fail. There's the memory usage gone back up to 82%. The CPU load is also in the warning state, um, which is much better. Um, this one's still critical, but that's from earlier, unrelated. Um, But if I now stop that stress test, these ones in just a moment will hopefully update and go back to normal. I'll just do a little refresh there. Memory usage is back down to 10%, and the CPU load should update very shortly, but it is going back. The averages are there. Yeah, so that one worked. It does show that it notices the contacts for critical warnings with email. It's the wrong server to run this one on. Would be right here. I did try changing it to mine, and I tried installing. I think I used it was a snail mail. Um, I had to install, but it didn't actually send. I could get a test command to send me an email with the from the VM, but I could not get Nagios to automatically send. It just didn't update. It didn't send anything. It didn't interact properly, and I did not really um, want to get it working, to be honest. Um, Network communications, I can show this by going to here, TCP dump for that, and then if I go back to the Nagios server and I check the load with this command, you can see plenty of um, Synac ACK all here, so it is working there. Yeah, I believe that's everything there. I will troubleshoot that one and record another clip that will be here in a moment. Okay, I found the issue it had been with my check DNF or DNS function. It had been checking for just being able to resolve the monitor.com and not based on the IP. So now I have it here checking. Um, it has to be the proper IP, and it is not getting what's expected here. I've changed this instead of the A record, which I could change the A record and then have it expect it here as well. It goes vice versa. But if I change this back to the 10.10.2205, save that, um, um, and then reschedule this, this should, when it updates, find the correct IP again. Um, it just takes a moment. There we go. Response there with the proper IP, and I think that was everything. showed the TCP dump. Yeah, okay. Thank you for your time and the assignment.